All right, so welcome back to Basin Motorsports. So today we are going to start working on the front bumper. Now, with doing the back bumper, it was pretty much sand it, filler, sand, filler, till I got it ready to go. Then was just sanding till it was ready to wrap. So sand it out to 1500, making a nice glass, slick surface that vinyl would stick to. The front bumper, well, it's going to be a lot more work to be able to do that. Here's why. So one big thing, notable difference on the front is that I've got this big split. You can see it starts right here, goes all the way down here, and then this piece here. First thing I need to do is really drill 2 holes in the end of this split, and that is just going to be to stop this crack here from perpetuating. So when this thing flexes back and forth, what you'll find is that this will start wearing the plastic out and it'll still continue on splitting all the way down. So drilling probably just like a 1/4 inch hole or something like down in each end will stop that split from continuing, and then I can put some duct tape on the back of this just as a temporary backer and fill this in. Now you also noticed down here I've got the cheese grater front end, so I've got to sand all this to be able to paint. This is going to be filled in similar to the back, but of course being the front, it's taken a lot more rock chips over the last 30-something years. So this is all just going to be filler work all the way down, cleaning. You've got the headlight buckets, which again are rough, so I've sanded them. Down through here, this will be fill work. This will all be fill work. And what you'll see when I'm done is that from the headlight buckets, get this thing to focus, the headlight buckets to the grill, all of that is going to be black. So I'm going to paint that with exterior trim black to match the mirrors and the trim. The body molding, the front and the tops and all that, and the sides is going to be wrapped in the satin urban jungle vinyl. So bottom is not so bad, but again, all the way around, all of this is going to have to be sanded and prepped for either paint or vinyl. All right, so in order to fill in the crack, I'm not just going to put filler in because that doesn't stop it. It's not a structural adhesive. So what I'm going to use on that is going to be Evercoat's Maxim 898. Yeah, 898. And this is a 2-part epoxy. So you basically got a cap. You've got kind of like a dispenser tube here that you push out, and then you just kind of push from the bottom. So this stuff will be pretty easy to do. I mean, once you put that on there, you put it in like a caulk gun there, squeeze it out, and then squeeze that on. Now I'm going to do this on the top side and the bottom. So the top side, I will put some duct tape on the back for the top once I get the holes drilled, and then some sandpaper to kind of give it a beveled edge so it kind of sits down in there like a V. Because I'm doing vinyl on this, I'm not going to use a hot stapler. So there is a product out there, a hot stapler, which is essentially something you melt like basically what it looks like a staple into the back of the plastic. Now that will add extra structure. If I was going to do paint, I would probably do that. I'd do a hot stapler, then the structural adhesive, and then fill beyond that point. Because I'm doing wrap and it's got some tension structure to it that won't allow it to stretch and move so much, I'm going to avoid the hot stapler. So there's 2 options out there: stapler, adhesive, filler, or just adhesive then filler, which I want to do because of the vinyl. All right, so what I'll show you here is that the front bumper is prepped. So this is all beveled between the holes. These are just like 1/4 inch at the end of the crack, so you can clearly see the crack now once I've beveled it out. And then I've got this little offshoot here kind of going down. So I need to put filler in here all the way down to here. I'll probably put a little bit in here and a little bit in here. I don't have to go crazy with this because I want to do the back side also. So this will cover the front. It'll feather out all the way around this. And right now the back is covered in one piece of duct tape just to kind of hold the back from squishing out. And then I'll peel it off, sand it, do the back also with the adhesive, the 898 adhesive, and then it's going to be on to sanding. crack itself. Once that's healed, I'm just going to let it sit overnight. You can see it's dark in here, so it's nighttime. I'll let this sit overnight, and then I'll come in tomorrow, flip the fascia over, peel the duct tape off, and then I'll treat the backside same way. And on that one, I'm really not going to worry about concern of visual piece because it's, you know, it's all inside. So right there, I want to make sure it's very structural as best as possible. Not really concerned with the appearance of it because nobody else will see it other than you guys that you watch this. And I'll show you the finished product, but don't expect it to be pretty because I'm not going to worry about it on the backside. All right, so on the front bumper, here is the first layer of filler down. Now the adhesive, I kind of forgot where it was, so I kind of covered a little bit of it. But that's okay, they're not chemically reactive, so the adhesive actually is pretty much done. But if you can see, I've got the headlight buckets. Of course, it's upside down, so that's the headlight buckets. Mostly along the trim line, the trim molding area. There's the other headlight bucket. Kind of spin around here a little bit, so you can kind of see. Still could do a little bit more, and I probably will on the second round of filler. There's a little bit there exposed, and I think I will just leave this as it is, and probably just call that a night. Let that cure overnight. Go ahead and take a shower and all that, and then come back out tomorrow, sand it, see where I'm at, assess it, and then keep working. All right, y'all, so I'm done for the night. Now I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about something with you guys to let you know what I've been thinking. So this week I've been putting in a lot of hours on what I call vanity things. And it's not structural, it's more like how pretty it is. When I've worked on the bumpers and that, you know, filling in all the little divots, sanding it all down, and that it's really not structural. I mean, there's nothing to it other than it makes it look good. I'm having this debate this week on how nice do I make these bumpers and some of this other stuff. And the reason is when I put the fenders in, you know, I put a lot of work into those fenders, probably 80 hours maybe to get the whole kit together. The rears, I didn't do anything other than I just sanded them down with 1500, and I found some, you know, just small things, you know, that if I rewrap the car, I'm going to fix at that point, but since the flares are wrapped, I'll leave it alone. The front fenders are the same case. You know, I fixed a lot of little stuff, but even when I wrapped them, they they just have little defects, you know, little stuff that you can walk up. And I mean, my wife has walked up and looked at them and just said, "Oh, I thought you would have sanded this a little bit more." And yeah, you know, I don't feel like I shortcut it by any means, but now that I step back and look at it and go, man, you know, I could have spent another 10 hours sanding these fenders. Same with the bumpers. You know, I'm doing all this fill work, and you know, the front bumper, it's going to take a beating. It's going to take rock chips. It's going to take a lot of stuff. And I'm having this debate on how nice do I make this stuff. I've seen cars that, you know, somebody spent 1,000 hours building it, and you walk by and it's so nice. You're like, man, I can't even imagine wanting to drive that thing, because the first time I got a rock chip, I would be just livid. So it's like, how much time do I spend? This is the front bumper. How much time do I spend filling in every last little divot on the thing, knowing it's going to get rock chips? I'm not going to be ashamed to drive this thing. I'm not going to be ashamed to take this autocross, open track, Optima, drag race. You know, so what do you guys think? I'm trying to find the balance. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to spend 20 hours on the front bumper filling every last little divot just to get a rock chip, and they're like, well, there went that. So this is about, I think this is about 2 hours to this point of just rough sanding, some fill work, some adhesive, and that. So I'll probably put another 2 in, so I might have 5 into prep maybe by the time I start wrapping. Same on the rear bumper, probably have about 5 into it. And I don't know, I think that's going to be good. I'm going to call it good enough. I don't feel like I need to go too great, because I'll be afraid to drive this car. And that's not the point of it. So here's a front bumper on the back side. Now that's just adhesive, and I didn't really use a tube. I squeezed it out on some cardboard, some waxy cardboard, kind of smearing it in there, and that's in there. So it's nothing pretty. I mean, you can see it's going to be structurally beautiful, and it will hold well, but darn if it is not pretty. Alright, with the bumper fixed, I'm going to jump ahead pretty far. Once I had everything fixed up on the bumper up here, the next piece involved a lot of sanding. So I did some fill work, obviously across a lot of it. I didn't do all of it, and I ran out a little bit of time. So this fill work is not perfect. It's pretty good, but not perfect. And it's going to be on my to-do list when I go to change the wrap to the next one. I'm going to go back and do some more fill work on this probably. I have also painted the grill and that, so if I lift this up, you can see how those are black. So the grill and the headlight buckets are black. Now I did fill work on those. After I had it all sanded down, I went and used the flexible primer. So this is SEM, the 39133. That's what I used for primer on the grill plus the headlight buckets. And then the trim black, which is 39143. That's what I used on those. Now this is the same stuff, at least on the trim black, that I used on the mirrors. And I think that was it. I think it was just the mirrors. Oh, the sail panels. Mirrors and sail panels. So those at least match now between those pieces. Now with those done, I did a lot of sanding on the whole bumper itself. So everything is sanded now down to 1500 grit. Probably took me 5 to 6 hours of sanding. Which, remember, I said on the rear bumper, it doesn't really matter on the time. If it works the first time, it was worth every minute of doing it. So with that, I did a lot of sanding on it, and now I've got it ready. So I put, obviously it's on wheels. You can kind of see the wheels under there. It's on jack stands with the front end up so that I can get a little bit of ergonomic height, so it's a little easier to deal with. And also I can get under the bumper here to wrap down under here a little bit easier. So the front bumper I'm going to do in 3 pieces, just like I did on the rear. It's going to be a bottom, then a middle, then a top. And that was so that I could come in right below this molding line here between the center. I'll come in here and come up about halfway, just like I did on the back. I will then wrap this one over down to this groove line here, cut it, wrap to the top up here, and then once this is on, 3M the knifeless tape, and then I'll wrap the top. So the first piece, the bottom, width, all the way across, is going to be 88. That is going to bend around the ends. It's going to be pretty close. It was about 83 and a half to go literally side to side around this top molding here. Adding 2 on each side gave me 87. I did 88, which was pretty close to the rear anyway. So I did it that way. So this will be pretty easy to do. Again, line it up here, drape it, go from the section down, and just wrap it around. So no more talking. 88. Cut it this way. I did 15. So 88 by 15 for this bottom half. We're going to get this done now. Okay, so piece number 1 is done. Not too bad. Came out okay. Now remember this line where this is going to stop once, it wraps up here, and then you cut. So you're going to cut below this radius where it goes down here. That way when this middle piece goes on, it will overlap this and you won't see an edge. And then you can stop it here. So you can cut this here with some knifeless tape or however you want to do it. This all goes pretty smooth. It's when you get to this corner right in here, you're going to run into a lot of trouble. The vinyl does not want to conform. It does not want to push in. So at this point, use the heat gun, and you're going to take it a little at a time. You're going to work it a little bit down into this contour, because it's not just going in, it's going out and around and through, kind of like you're going to grandma's house in the woods. So take your time with it, heat it up, make it relax, and just feed it in there. So it's just going to take a lot of work. It's going to be real patient with it, and you will get it. You'll get it to feed down in, and you'll get to this point where you can just then heat it and wrap it. So this has been heated. It's been post-heat, I guess you call it. Post-heat there, and then you can see I've still got some of the edge here on the bottom of that. So I'm going to leave all of that until the end when I take off the fascia to be able to wrap all the edges, to trim any kind of tape I want to do, and that's it. So the next piece is to cut this width, which is probably going to be similar to the rear, so it's probably going to be about 6 inches to go from this top down through this and then to the bottom here. So I'll double check that measurement. I will cut that, and we'll get this next piece done. All right, guys, so here's piece 2. Now again, 88 in length, so it wraps around. It's going to be an 8-inch width piece. It'll give you about an inch on the top and an inch on the bottom overlap to be able to pull on when you're doing these pieces. Again, take it slow on these corners. You're going to have to feed them in. You're going to have to use heat, feed, just to try and get a smooth transition around these corners. And there again, this isn't perfect. This is going to be, it's going to be halfway ugly, but it's a front bumper. It's going to take rock chips, so I'm not like totally scared by it. Once it's done with this, I need to lay down the 3M tape to be able to cut the top layer versus the bottom. When I get this overlaid, I still need to measure what it's going to be, and honestly, everything through the headlight buckets and the grill is probably going to be waste because I want it to flow one piece up and over the edge, and unfortunately, it's going to be waste. It's just how it's going to be. So let me get this measured up, 3M tape, put it on there. I'll show you kind of the finished product before I take it off for post heat, edge wrap, yada, 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 all that stuff. Now, if you're thinking, man, he's rushing through this, I am, because all the detail is in the rear bumper. And if you guys watched all of that, you've seen it all. If you haven't watched the rear bumper and you get to this point and you feel stuck, go back to that video. I'll make sure I drop a link in here so you can see it. Fast forward, whatever you got to do to find what you need. But all the details of how to do all these little things is in there. Otherwise, this is pretty good. And I did do an inlay right here at the plate, so I'll show you that later on. But for now, this is pretty good. Okay, so I'm back working on the third piece. I'm already sensing that I'm going to have a problem. Not necessarily a problem, but an opportunity to do something before I make a mistake. So, of course, the material, again, is 88 in length. This is 20 inches right here, from here down to here. 20 is great. It's going to cover down here probably at least an inch down here at the bottom, which is good. It means I can have material to kind of pull on, help tuck in, and that. It's good for there. It's going to come up over this about an inch. The trouble I'm having is that, one, you got too much material in here, which I had mentioned kind of cutting a section. But when you get to this area that it curves over here, what you start to see is that this flows well. You're going to overrun here, but at this top, what's going to happen is it's going to start to bunch. And remember, you're going to kind of flow this up and over. So I think what I'm going to do, and I hope this doesn't bite me in the butt, is I'm going to take my snitty and I'm going to cut somewhere in here. Now I've got my magnet holding it right here on the hood ledge because this is plastic, this is aluminum. There's really only this place here that's steel that this magnet will stick to. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my snitty and I'm going to cut out a section somewhere in here. Save as much of this material on the original backing as possible versus cutting it, trying to put it back on the backing, which doesn't really work that well once it comes off. Take my snitty, cut it down through here, cut some of this off so that it flows in, and I give myself maybe like 3 or 4 inches down here because I only need about 1.5 inches really. And then what that'll allow me to do by taking this out, I can then, I guess, round this corner as this material kind of bunches. Make sure it flows in here, but then I can bunch it over into this spot here, down into the headlight bucket. So as it routes up and around and curves in, I can take all this extra here and flow it in that. So let me cut this out, and I'll show you what I mean. When I cut out this section, kind of nervous about cutting this out. I don't want it to screw it up, but I guess worst case, I make the mistake, I have a little bit extra of this same length cut, and I could probably take another 20-inch section. And it's going to be wasted material, but it's going to be a lesson learned. So let me cut. I'll show you what I mean. So here's what I meant. Basically, I cut a section out. Now, this material is saved. It's rolled up. It's going with the other safety stock, I guess you'd call it. The extras from the roll. What I will do is I will take this down. I'm going to basically peel the backing from this, slit it with my snitty again. I will then put this material kind of in place down here, work my way around to the area, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap around the corner, and I'm going to allow it to bunch itself kind of basically back on this corner. So it's going to kind of flow up and in and kind of crumple up in this area is what I expect, so that I can, I guess, get where I need it to be and then use my razor to trim off where I don't need. So I will have some waste in this, but I think it's going to be okay. I'd rather have a handful waste than the whole thing across waste. That's just crazy. There's no reason to waste that much material. Okay, so here is going to be close to the finished product of at least the wrap piece without doing extras of heat and pulling and taping that. This all goes smooth. You should be good with this one. Where you're going to get into trouble, where I felt like I struggled a little bit, but I got through it, is as this material flows this way and tries to go around this corner, what happens is all the tension goes right here on this body line, right in here. So as you trying to feed material down in here, what happens is it tries to suck it all in towards the center. So in order to get around this without going crazy on it, use a little bit of heat. Now the heat is literally just to relieve the tension of material. Do not heat it and then try to stretch it and force it down in there. Heat it, little bit of pressure, let it feed itself in, and let the wrinkles happen here. Let it wrinkle itself up. It's going to be okay. Once you get this in here, once you get it wet out, if you want to call it that, or once you get stuck down in here, then you can start moving up and away from it as a good foundation. It'll pull. If it's good and bonded on there, it will pull and you'll be okay. So heat, like a massage, work it down in there nice and smooth, get your minds out of the gutter, and then just flow the material up and around. And you'll get there. A little bit of heat. Be patient with it. Now, let's get the string, pull it, rip off this bottom section and see how the trim between the pieces is going to be. Okay, so that seam looks pretty good. Pulled clean, no real issues, laid down nicely in there. Now it is right along that body line right in here, so it does hide it a little bit. And I'll tell you, some of these corners right here, it's got enough wrinkles in there, and I guess it's not perfect. I'll just say that. Is it good? Yeah. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. So the last thing I need to do is grab a table out, set this up, wrap around the edges. Because everything's going to be contained, I think I'm going to leave it alone from taping it on this stuff because it's clamped together on the pieces. I'll probably tape the bottom of it here just for the aerodynamic of the flapping. This stuff here I'm not going to. And I tell you, having this seam here where air is going to come in and try and peel it up this way, this may be a mistake, and I probably won't know it until maybe like 3 or 6 months in, after it's got some sun and wind on it and that. This may be a mistake on this seal point. But, you know, hey, if it happens, if it's a mistake, worst case, I can put some tape over it, or, man, if I have to rewrap it, I've got extra material, I can buy material. It'd be a lesson learned. This may be a bad point, and maybe I should have put it down here, but time will tell. So let me get all this done, and I will give you the final review of the bumper so you can kind of see the finished product. All right, guys, so here is the finished product of the bumper. Really everything after I heat sealed it. The only thing that I really found is that in this opening cutout, I should have done inlays here, and basically just cutting this material and trying to fold it over, it really doesn't reach very well down in here. So On one side I did do inlays because that was the second one, kind of like the first one was the mistake, the second one was the good one. So I would say do some inlays in here in your turn signals if you're doing a 4i that has this. And that's just laying some extra material down, so when you lay it over, if it comes up short or tears or anything else, you can lay it down in there and it's still green because it will lay itself down. Now, make sure that this bumper piece, as you fold it in, is always on top. So the inlays go in first, then you cut and heat and all that kind of form it in there. And it will fit, it will lay down in there, and that way your seam is not going to catch air. Everything else is good. Heat sealed, everything. Obviously the bumper's not bad. Not perfect either by any stretch. Not too bad. Not great, but it is what it is. So it's green. Still need to do a couple other things. Obviously I need to put the headlights in. There's no headlights. Get the wires fixed up, and then that's really going to be it. That'll be the last piece of what I need to do to get this car done. And there's just a couple other pieces to get the car completely done other than the headlights. So with that, I will leave you with that on the front bumper. Everything else pretty good. You know, if you have any questions on stuff I haven't covered, I know I jumped through on this one because I did so much on the rear bumper. I didn't want to bore you with two back-to-back bumper videos that were kind of the same thing. So if you have questions on any of this, you know where to leave them. Leave them down in the comments. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Hopefully, you guys, once you see all the vinyl work, you think it came out pretty well. I do. And if you see it in person, hopefully you go, it looks good, man. It looks pretty good. So that's it for this time. From Basin Motorsports, out.